Hi everyone, Marcus here from EBike, and if you love tech and if you love discounts, this is a place for you because everything that we bring to the channel have links on the description below. And today I have here my good friend Zach that don't do a video with me for ages, and today we've been riding with Wau Cyber. It's a company that I covered a long time ago with their first product.
This is excellent for commuting.
And I used to work with Dan from Rock for a long period of time. And he asked me, can you just have a look on the bike, have your thoughts about it and say what you think? And I thought nothing better than bring Zach because he rides bikes and I normally don't ride a bike. Zach, you use this one in the morning, correct?
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah, nice and early.
Obviously, this is a prototype, so we know that there is a lot of things that have to be changed, and we definitely notice a lot of things that have to be changed. Obviously, we can't really criticize something that is still not on the market, and this is just a prototype. And in the end of the day, this video should be something to help the company to follow a route, try to improve those things. And I have to say that the first big thing is obviously this bike comes with two different seats, but we just had this seat, and for me and for Zach, it was really low. So guys, as you guys can see, when I'm pedaling, this gets really high. Obviously, when it's on the bottom, it's okay. But obviously we need to consider that many times you'll be here, so it becomes uncomfortable for you to basically pedal. You agree with me?
Yeah, the seat was very low. Yeah.
So they inform us that they're going to increase in 8 to 10 centimeters, correct? But do you think that is enough?
No.
Will you increase more?
They definitely need to be at least 20 centimeters higher.
Yeah, and we were seeing some of the things. Obviously the bike is in the opposite side, but on the motor I think that they could twist the motor a bit, and in that case it will create that this part of the bike will go slightly lower and increase also that. As you can see, the symbol here is not completely aligned, is a bit bending up, so that makes that here your pedals are slightly higher. So I would like that they'll be able to rotate this a bit, so this bit here will be a little bit lower. Here on the back they have space to do that rotation, but here on the front, as you can see, the motor is beating here against the chassis, so for that they will have to cut a bit the chassis to allow to rotate. I think that this curvature of the bench could be completely gone, because even me that I'm shorter than Zach, I found that this curvature was not helping me. But one thing that I really like, it feels like a motorbike. Do you agree with that?
It is so big, yeah. People thought it was a motorbike when we were going past it.
Yeah, exactly. So I found that I like how it curves. I definitely think that the front tire could be thinner.
I agree.
Do you agree with that?
Yeah.
So in that way it will help also that it will be a little bit easier to maneuver, but I found that I was in control. As you can see, the profile of this tire is really round. There is plenty of space anyway, even if this tire is really thick, but I think it will be a benefit if this tire was slightly thinner compared to the one that is on the back, because it will be much easier just to move her around. Obviously, and I think it was exactly the same for you, that this distance between the pedals and the seat was really not enough. If you live in the UK, you will not have all this power, correct?
Only 250 watts.
I think that if you will purchase this on IndieGoGo, you should have not this one, and you should have
the saddle seat, not the bench seat.
Yeah, because in the end of the day you will have to pedal, and here obviously we have the throttle, so we don't have to pedal, and that's the way that we've been riding all day, correct?
Yeah, you can't have a throttle in the UK, unfortunately. That will make it illegal.
Exactly, and for that reason I will definitely recommend you to don't buy with the seat, but buying with the
saddle seat.
Yeah, I really like the seagull turners and all these lights. What is your thoughts about that?
They do a good job. They're really big, really long. They could be integrated a bit better, look a bit more polished, but they are very nice looking.
Like we were saying in the beginning, this is just a prototype, but I agree with Zach. I think that the LEDs could be like cover on the sides and on the top, and in that way will look more seamless on this bike. I believe that they will do that on the prototype. Also, another thing that they told us is obviously the covers, they'll be slim, so they will not stand out so much. Obviously that will give a better space, but we also talk about it that for me it should be completely flush with the case.
Yeah, I agree. Definitely flush. That will help with the pedaling.
So the body will be slimmer. So like I was saying before, this area that is completely empty, I would like that this part is completely flush with the chassis of the metal part, because in the end of the day I don't think that 8 liters is going to do a lot of difference, and I'll prefer that the distribution of the batteries will be put inside this space that is empty on the middle here. And also I think that if they allow to have like a small, at least a small hole that you can pass a chain. If I have to put this bike somewhere and I'm not concerned that someone will come and steal the bike, I'll have a way to put it around here and not just using, for example, the fork or another place to attach this bike somewhere. So I'll prefer to have a bit of that space that is completely empty, passing from one side to another, to attach this somewhere. This is just my opinion, but tell if you agree or not. But I think that 8 liters of capacity that you have is not going to give you anything. So basically you'll have the batteries a little bit lower and this part here is completely empty. But with 8 liters is basically nothing. If we think about a backpack, you have like what?
Probably 15, 25 litres in a
Yeah,
backpack.
exactly. So in the end, 8 liters, you put almost nothing in there. And I will definitely prefer that the sides will be much, much slimmer. So I'll prefer that they use that space to accommodate the batteries in a different way.
Yep.
And in that way will be better. But what we notice also is, obviously, this is just a prototype. You still don't have the place where you are going to charge. So we don't know if the doors are on the top.
Port, yeah.
Where you put the charging ports on this bike if it was you?
I'd just put it on the side, put a nice little swivel cover on it, keep it simple. Put it lower down so you can have the charger on the floor. You don't have to have a massive long lead or rest the charger on the seat in case it might fall off. Yeah,
that could be definitely a solution. Also, another thing that they said to us is the turning, it's not great at the minute because it's still a prototype. There are a lot of things.
The steering angle, yeah.
What do you find about the steering that obviously at the minute could be improved?
You don't get a lot of sway on the steering because the frame is quite chunky, but they've already said that to us that they'll make adjustments on that.
Yeah, obviously I think that they should have at least like, let's say 45 degrees, and the bike is not doing that at the minute. Have that in consideration. So when we talk about the rotation, as you can see, is they put here some rubbers on the side, and basically, if you just pointed it out there, Zach. So basically they put these rubbers so when we rotate, it's not really hitting the frame, but obviously these bits here, they are rotated in. They were there to avoid that, but if this was in the right position, the turning circle will be even smaller. So what we said during the video, as you guys can see, this part here is a bit bulky. So we think that if it was a little bit more narrow, that will allow a little bit more curvature to the front part of your bike.
They could also adjust the offset of the upper and lower clamps to bring the forks further away from the frame. That might be a cheaper option.
So about the gears, what they basically happens to us and obviously what they inform us, can you just talk a bit about that?
So the cassette is not lined up very well with the front sprocket. They did mention that to us. They said don't go backwards because it will pop off. It did pop off anyway, but we weren't going backwards. We were keeping a steady speed. We didn't hit any bumps, nothing, but it did pop off. But we managed to get it back on. It wasn't too much of an issue.
No, it was quite easy, but definitely on the top there is not a lot of space.
So they did mention to us that they were going to improve the alignment of the chain, the cassette relative to the front chainring on the final version, so you won't have any problems with the chain coming off like you might have seen in other videos.
So they said definitely that will change and will be easier if in the future obviously that happens, because obviously in bikes that can always happen, and obviously it will be much easier to just put the chain back in place. A big elephant for you and for me when we talk about the Wau Cyber is the suspension. They told me, or in this case Dan told me, that the most powerful one will have suspension on the ear. What is really your thoughts about having or not suspension on the back of the bike?
For 250 watts, you don't really need suspension on the back. It's got a big fat tyre, so I think that could absorb enough impact. But if you're going to go to a more powerful version, you need a rear suspension. It's not particularly comfortable when you hit a bump with no suspension at a speed of anything over 15 miles an hour, really.
Yeah, I found the same. I found that obviously the seat was too hard. Obviously, we know that is going to be improved. When we talk about the pedals, we have this conversation quite a bit. And like I said, this is a prototype. There is a lot of things that should change, and we are also pointed out a few ideas that we had during this day. And it's just also to help the company. Maybe these ideas can improve this product for the final version that you'll get after. But at least for me, if you have with this seat, I found that the pedals should be more on the front, like the Super 73. because it will be much easier, much more comfortable for you to pedal. Even if they are not in the optimal position for pedaling, it will be much more comfortable when you are just hitting the throttle. Obviously, I'm not talking for the UK version. I don't think, like I said, that the UK version should be sold with the seats, just with the saddle. It's going to be much better. When we talk about the front light, what was your thoughts about it? I'll give my thoughts about it, but what do you think about it?
My thoughts were, it's got a nice beam pattern, a flat beam pattern, not to blind people, but given how chunky the bike is, it doesn't quite fit with the style of the bike, very small.
Yeah, I would say the same. I found that this bike have a lot of lights and is going to really bring a lot of attention when you'll be riding. When we look here, you have obviously the buzzer, and this, I don't really like the look. The buzzer is really big. I think that the light could be much bigger, like very classic look, and in that way you'll have obviously a better light, and you could hide the buzzer on the back of the front light. Since it's a big bike, I agree with you. I think that the front light should be much bigger, and I'll be curious to see if on the final product they will have or not. But at least at home it seems that it was quite bright, so I don't think that you'll be really concerned about it. But they also inform us that supposedly the LEDs, and we had this conversation at home, that supposedly the LEDs is not really the front light. They'll be brighter than they are at this moment. What was your thoughts about the screen? Were you happy with the position of the screen?
The screen's fine. Yeah, it's just a standard e-bike screen. It does the job really well. Got lots of information on there that you might want to know.
They said that this is just the prototype screen. If you have ride the previous Wau is very similar, but they said that it should be different on the final version. Another thing that they said they should be different is you have this tag that you can just tap on the top, and it will turn on or turn off your bike. Your keys, you have obviously your key, and you have the thing that you can tap in here that is going to be a ring. Now the screen is completely off. Let's just put it like this. Maybe it's better to see on the camera. And now it's turning on, saying Wau, and it appears like you can see the screen there. So definitely a plus, but this is going to be a ring that you'll be able to put on your hand. Obviously, if you are using gloves, maybe it's not the easiest thing in the world, because in the end of the day it's going to be on the way. I found that is a cool feature to have, and if it's on the ring, it's easier because it means that you have one less key to have around. What is your thoughts about that?
It's definitely a cool feature. Gonna bring a new style to the e-bikes.
It reminds me a bit the easy locking mechanism on the Rock helmets. They also brought one, obviously we are talking about a Rock product, and I always feel a bit related because Dan was from Rock. So I found that is a cool feature. Another cool feature that is coming, but we didn't have the possibility to test, was the blind spots. What was your thoughts about it?
Obviously we just saw radar, yeah, it didn't come on our model, but it looked quite interesting online.
Yeah, do you think?
To detect behind you if there's a vehicle coming up perhaps too quickly behind you, and it'll give you a little warning.
Yeah, definitely. I would like to have tried. Fortunately, we didn't have the possibility. When we talk about speeds, what was the speed that you accomplished when you obviously was riding?
We only did about 20-25 mile an hour. It was too difficult to change gears, so we couldn't get anything efficient, or we couldn't get from low speed to high speed very well. So we just stuck it in one gear and just used the throttle only.
They inform us that it will be anyway locked in one mode, that will not be able to change it because this is just the prototype version. What you have to say about the tires? Did you like it? You didn't like it?
They're just your standard Kenda tires that come with any fat e-bike really. They're good for grass. Wouldn't really use them on the tarmac. You'd want more of a street tire for that.
Yeah, I agree. And also obviously the Kenda tires, they have a profile that is really round, so don't expect to have very aggressive turns on this bike, because that will never happen. I have to say, and obviously this is just my thoughts about it, on the less powerful version they should try to find a tire that is a little bit more in V shape, because it will be a little bit easier to maneuver. And also if you choose a different type of profile of tires for that bike, it will make that this bike, even if it's not as powerful, it will be easier to maneuver. Because at least for me, and I would like to hear your thoughts about it, since it's such a heavy bike, and they said to us that the bike will be 8 kilos lighter than it is now, and that will be cool, because I will say that this bike is 35 kilos maybe?
I'd agree with you.
But these bikes only have 1000 watt hours, so you should have 2000 watt hours. That, for what you told me, is much higher than the standards of
The
what you are
standard
used to.
e-bike, yeah, you probably only get about 750 watt hours battery on a standard e-bike, but then you get a really lightweight frame, skinny tyres, which will improve efficiency and make it easier to pedal.
Battery is bigger, obviously the consumption will be bigger because
Yeah.
if it's a heavier tire, bigger tires is normal. I don't know what is really the range that you can do with this, because in this case we couldn't really pedal on the version that we got here. We'll have to see the final version, how it's going to be. What you want to talk about the fork? Did you like the suspension on the front? Will you have done something different in there, or what is your thought?
For the low power version that we got, it was adequate. If they're talking 8,000 watts, that suspension is never going to be able to be capable of 8,000 watts over a pothole.
For me, it was okay. Like I said, I was majority of the time I was just filming Zach, obviously using the bike, and I found obviously when I was filming you that everything that you was catching, it was adjusting. Obviously, I felt like you on the back, you could really feel on your bump.
Yeah.
On the cheapest version, they could just live like this because it's
definitely
not speed enough. Obviously, we were above the one that we will get in the UK, so definitely this will be more than enough. I'm just curious, obviously, with the limitation of speed, how slow that bike will be on the first kilometers, because obviously it's a heavy bike. But the front fork, I found it okay for what we've done it. And what was your thoughts about the brakes? Were you happy? Because obviously we talked about that when we saw the bike for the first time.
Yeah.
Your approach was that the disc brakes was a bit too small for this version, but in the end...
I thought they were too small. When I first saw the bike, I thought that's a big bike and those are some small calipers. And then we rode it around. It was all right. Did a good job. Quite surprised. The power level we had, it was more than enough.
Yeah, I found that it was quite responsive.
Yeah.
More on the right hand side than on the left, but I found that it was really responsive. Like I said, my specialty is not bikes. That's why I also have here Zach to give his thoughts about it, because in the end of the day, I think it will be helpful for the end product that you guys will receive. When we talk about the handlebar, we have a completely different experience. You found that it was not really comfortable for you.
The position was quite uncomfortable for me.
For me, it was the opposite. I like it, the way that I was feeling my arms. I felt like in a motorcycle, and it's not the best day for me, and Zach knows, because I have part of my back completely blocked. So I was concerned that being in this position will be very uncomfortable for me today, but I was feeling quite comfortable. I found that all the controls, they are easy to reach. When we talk about the comfort of your hands, very easy to hit the throttle, very easy. This part is quite comfortable, so very comfortable, at least for me. And it's easy just to press the buttons here on the bottom. So easy to do it, or even to reach with 2 fingers your brakes, so definitely a plus. But I would like maybe a throttle that will be just pressing in here, because in that way it will be more comfortable for me to use it to brake, so I could accelerate and brake at the same time. And in this case, if I'm doing this, I can be basically reaching the brakes, and this one is the ones that I can brake harder on this right hand side. It's very easy to reach the buzzer, and it's super loud. Is super loud, is motorcycle
you made
legal.
a few pedestrians quite angry with that.
Yeah, exactly. That is one thing that I think that they should put on the final version, is when you put the signal to turn left and right, you don't have any information on the front. The signal is there, or there is no sound that they could definitely add on to this one. And now it's still on. When you look to the screen, and I hope that you guys can see something, it's not possible to see any information saying that we are turning left or right. So many times I was just forgetting to have this turn on, and Zach was always telling me, can you turn off, because you are still saying that you are turning to the right or the left. What was your thoughts about that, and about the controls, obviously?
Controls, they're good. They're not cheap. The gear selector is a good quality Shimano one. I agree. It could have had a sound, a buzzer, or information icon on the display to let you know you left the indicator on. Yeah.
There is another feature that, I'm going to be honest, for me is not really...
It's a bit of a gimmick.
Yeah, for me it's a gimmick, is the burnout button that basically when you press it...
deactivates the brake sensor.
Yeah, so you can continue to accelerate anyway, and even if you are braking, so you can burn the tire on the back. As you can see, you can adjust the front fork, so if you want a little bit looser or a little bit stiffer, you'll be able to change that. And here is the button that we said that for me is a bit a gimmick, but some of you guys will like it if you want to basically burn a bit of your tires. For me, that's not really relevant. I think also this is from someone that really comes from motorcycling and is thinking about motorcycling and doing those stuff. For a bike, for me, is not really relevant. For me, it can disappear from the bike, but I believe for some of you guys will be something interesting.
Yep.
Another thing is here on the center, you'll have a button that at the minute is not really working when you press there. This is the button that we were talking about, it, that if you press, you basically turn off your bike. And in that way, in the future, when you'll press, you'll be swapping between one battery and the other. So another thing that Zach was now pointing it out is, if you want to just talk about it.
The stem on the handlebars, it rotates, it's adjustable, so you can get a different angle and a higher or lower.
Yeah, so for someone that is a little bit bigger, or if you want to have the arms a little bit more
further out or
further
more
or a little bit closer, that will be an advantage. Maybe for you that will have made
it could have improved it for me.
Yeah, for me how it is was quite comfortable. Also, I could see that this is slightly different from the other versions that we saw online, that we have these parts to rest your hands on the palms. I like it, but obviously I was riding with gloves and you was without gloves. Yeah. So maybe also I have that extra support from the Nox technology that was making me not even feeling that sensation of rubber that you were feeling all the time. Another thing that we find out is about obviously all the chassis and about the turning of this bike. One thing that I really like about the turning signals is the fact that when you put it also, and now I think is really hard for you guys to see, but also the word Wau is blinking, so you have signals on the front, signals on the side, and also on the back. And when we talk about these lights, it's very traditional from Wau, because even the original one had like this. I remember when the owner of Wau came to my house trying to explain how he made it to be possible to not see the LEDs reflecting, that he had to put the LEDs not pointing up but to the sides, and in that way he could do this effect that you are unable to see all the LEDs, and that's something that I really like. I think that they have a very good looking bike, and I think they still have a lot of time to do all these improvements. I think the worst one or the most difficult one will be the height of the seat and the motor, because my main concern is, will they be able to, for example, do the idea that I gave of rotating slightly the motor to give a little bit more space? I'm not sure. Obviously, we'll have to see what is coming for the IndieGoGo campaign. I loved the motorcycle sensation that this bike can deliver. I think that, yes, you should buy the 750, or if it comes out the 8000, obviously, I think a lot of things that we are seeing here are impossible to be there. So they will have to change a lot of stuff, like you were talking about the front fork. But I will definitely would like to have tried this bike with suspension on the back. And like 100%. I said, with a much higher seat, it will have done a massive difference for us, because like I said, we couldn't pedal this bike. And since it's a bike, at least for me, it's essential to pedal.
Yeah, they need to decide if it's a bike or a cruiser. I understand it because you can change the seat, yeah, but that doesn't mean it's going to be good at both.
Yeah, so I agree with that. So since the beginning, that customer should be aware of what they want. They want just for cruising, or do they want for cycling? Because if it's for cruising, I think that, and I give you that idea, but obviously we were talking about that can affect all the gears and everything. But the fact that you have two positions where you could assemble the motor, and in that way make that your pedals, they are sitting a little bit further or a little bit more on the back, and be a little bit more customizable. And in that way, maybe they could do like what they've done with Emotion, with their new scooter, the RS, that you can change to a sports mode or to an off-road mode, where you can adjust the position of your tires and the deck. And like I said during the video, create, for example, a second hole in here, so creating two different positions to be able to, if it's in a cruise mode or if it's in a position that I want to cycle. And I think they could try to do something similar here. I don't know, obviously, the technical part is if it's going to be possible or not to do it, but that will be something that I'll be very curious to test it out, if they could deliver that. So in the end of the day, I would like just to say that this is a product that is going to be launched on IndieGoGo on the 25th. At the moment that we are recording, we still have basically almost 1 month. They still have a lot of time to do improvements. And obviously when these things goes live on IndieGoGo, depending on the money that they raise, they can do more stuff. So I'm really curious to see what is all the steps that they can offer us on IndieGoGo. I would like to see more things like, oh, we can improve this on the bike, we can improve that, and not just a LED solution that is going to have different colors. For me, it's more important that they can, we can improve the position of the pedals, or we can improve this or that. I think it will be interesting to see all those steps on the IndieGoGo campaign. Like I said, this is just a prototype. We need to see the final product. For a prototype is a good starting point, in my opinion, because they still didn't raise any money for it. So we have to have that in consideration. I'm expecting much more from the Wau Cyber, because yes, it's Wau when you look it online, but I think that I want more from their bike when the product comes out. My name is Marco. This is MedPack, this is Zach. I hope that you guys enjoyed this video. If you have any comments or any questions, please feel free to leave in the comments below. And thank you so much to be here once again to talk about PV, something that we were not doing for a long period of time. See you guys soon.